Agree.
Good morning. This is your stats sensei, Mr. Spensei, and we're going to go over some rules for random variables. We're going to start off by adding, subtracting, multiplying, and multiplying by constants. Then we're going to come back and combine random variables. And we've done this at the very beginning of the year, but there's a good time to do it now because we use a little bit of that information of combining random variables and for our next hypothesis and confidence interval type testing. So here we go. For addition, constants can be added to measures of center, which means your mean and your median. So we can add constants to measures of center. We cannot add constants to measures of spread, range, IQR, variance, deviation. Those will remain the same. We cannot add things to them. We're going to have an example where we go through that. It's going to state the rules. Subtraction follows the same as addition because really subtraction is just adding negatives. So once again, you can add measures, you can add a constant to measures of center, which means, but you cannot add constants to measures of spread. On multiplication, constants can be multiplied to measures of center, mean, which means it can be multiplied by the mean and the median. Constants can also be multiplied by measures of spread, but for variances, we have a slightly different rule. We must have to be squared first. Constants must be squared first, and then they can be multiplied by variance. All right. And division follows the same rules as multiplication. So let's just say we start off with a mean of 23.5, a median of 21, a range of 15, an IQR 6.3, standard deviation 2.7, and a variance of 7.29. All right, so we're going to start off there and we're going to move on. So here we go. So the very first thing we're going to do is we're going to try to add 4. That just means we're going to go 23.5, add 4, and we're going to get 27.5. We're going to take 21 and add 4, and we'll get 25. And then we go 15 plus 4, and you go, oops, nope, can't add to those because we're going to adding to the measures of the center, but we can't add to the measures of spread. So these remain the same. They did not change. All right. Well, we're going to subtract 20. Well, on subtraction, it follows the same rules as addition. Well, we started off with 23.5. We went 23.5 minus the 20, and we get 3.5. 21 minus the 20, and we get 1. Of course, measures of spread do not change. So these all are going to be the same when we're talking about measures of spread all the way across when it comes to addition and subtraction. When it comes to multiplication, they all change, but variance changes a little bit different. So here, our original mean was 23.5. And if I multiply by 3, I end up getting 70.5. My original median was 21. 21 times 3 is 63. My range was 15. 15 times 3 is 45. 6.3 from IQR times 3 is 18.9. 2.7 times 8.1. But if I take for variance, on the other hand, if I take 7.29 and I multiply it times 3, I get 21.87, and that's not the correct answer. What I have to do is go 7.29 times 3 squared, and that will give me the correct answer of 65.61. So please remember, variance the constant has to be squared. All right, variance, the constant has to be squared when you're multiplying. Okay, for division, well, we started off with 23.5, and we're just going to divide it by 4. The median, we started off with 21. We'll just divide it by 4. The range is 15. We divide that by 4. The IQR of 6.3, we divide that by 4. And the standard deviation, we also divide by 4. But the variance, we're going to have to do different. Just like in multiplication, we have to square it. So we started off with 7.29, and we're dividing it not by 4, but by 4 squared. and we end up getting 0.4555625. So 0.455625, and that's because we took our original variance 7.29 and divided it by 4 squared. Okay. All right. The last one, we had a couple things that we did, so we're trying to be a little bit tricky here. So we took our 23.5, our original mean, we multiplied it by 0.8 and then added 2. I can do that just directly. I can go 0.8 times 23.5 plus 2. For the median, I can do the same thing. I can go 0.8 times 21 plus 2. It gets a little different for the range. It's 0.8 times 15, and I don't even worry about the plus 2 because we can't add the constants. For the IQR, 0.8 times 6.3, don't add the constant. For the variance, for the standard deviation, it's 0.8 times 2.7, we don't add the constant. And then for the variance, remember, we have to square our multiplication, so it's 0.8 times 7.29. The 0.8 is squared, and we don't add the constant. All right, so that's the way you multiply, divide, and add constants to a random variable. All right, the next part of this video is going to be combining random variables. Means can be summed directly, and variances can actually be summed directly. Standard deviations cannot be added. They must be converted to variances first, summed, and then the square root of the sum must be taken. All right? Means can be subtracted directly. Variances cannot be subtracted, and instead of subtracting, we sum them. Standard deviations cannot be subtracted. However, we convert them to variances, sum the variances, and then take the square root. Okay? So our first part, we have a mean of 23 and a standard deviation of 4. And to get the variance, all we did is go 4 squared. We have a 29, a standard deviation of 5, and to get the variance, we just went 5 squared. All right, so that variance is just the squaring of the standard deviation. So we start off with, we have x plus y. So really, they just want us to go, all right, 23 plus 29. We do that and we get 52. However, with standard deviation, I can't do that directly. I have to go 4 squared plus 5 squared. Then I need to take the square root of that. So essentially, we're doing this. 4 squared plus 5 squared equals this value. Now, for me on the calculator, I'll do it this way. 4 squared plus 5 squared. Oops. 5 squared. 4 squared plus 5 squared. And I get that value, and then I raise it to the half power. And that's how I get that. On the other hand, for the variance, all I did was go 4 squared plus 5 squared, and I stopped. Because we don't need to take a square root for the variance. With the means, I subtracted directly 23 minus the 29. And I have no idea why I have 2 values there. So let me try that out. 23 minus 29 equals -6. However, guess what? We can't subtract. We can only square. So for standard deviation, even though it says subtract, we change that negative sign to a plus sign. And once again, we go 4 squared plus 5 squared. And I take the square root of that. However, variances are just 4 squared plus 5 squared, and we're done. Getting a little trickier here. All right. And I can see that there's some errors here. So let me pause this for just a moment. All right, excuse me for a moment. I'm going to have to fix these on our way, but these values here are incorrect. Try to fix these on the way. So our X was 23. So 0.4 times 23 minus 0.6 times 29. And that's the way you go about that one. All right. So with that one, you can just go straight at it and we can subtract directly. And yeah, we end up getting a negative value, but that's fine. So once again, 0.4 times 23 minus 0.6 times 29, that equals negative 8.2. For the next one, we're still following the same thing, but we're going 0.4 times our standard deviation, and then we have to square that, all right, plus 0.6 times our standard deviation, and then we have to square that, and then we have to come back and take the square root of that whole thing. All right, so here we go. 0.4 times 4. Let's square that. And then we have 0.6 times 5. And then we square that. Or we try to square that. So let me back up on that one. 0.4 times 4. Square it. Then we go 0.6 times 5. We square that. So now now that they're squared, we can add the 9 and the 2.56. So plus 2.56. Now we've added them, but now I need to take the square root of them. Let me hold on for just one moment. All right, so I'm going to go back and rework through that. So basically, it's 0.4 times our mean of 4. So we multiply them, then we square the results because we can't add standard deviations. Then we go plus 0.6 times our mean of 5. We square that. All right. I mean, not our mean, our standard deviation of 5, because we can't add standard deviations directly. We have to square that. When we do that, we end up getting the square root of 11.56. All right. Once I get 11.56, I can just raise it to the half power, caret 0.5, and I end up getting 3.4 as my answer. So the way to do it is, again, 0.4 times the standard deviation of 4, square it, 0.6 times the standard deviation of 5, and square that. That gives you the square root of 11.56, which equals 3.4. Now, we haven't done the variance yet. On the variance side, we have to multiply the variance by the square of the constant. So 0.4 squared times 16 plus 0.6 squared times 25. All right. And when we do that, we end up getting 11.56. That gives us 11.56. And remember, we don't have to square any of these parts because it's variance and it's not necessary to square it. You can sum those directly. All right. What if we had multiple? Well, x plus x divided by 3. I just added them all up and added up all my means, divide by 3. With standard deviation, 4 squared plus 4 squared plus 4 squared raised to the half power, then divide by 3. Variance is essentially the same thing, but I have to divide by 3 squared. All right. And that's the way these all generally fall out. And so there's your work shown for the others. Hope this video was somewhat helpful, and see you in the next video. And most importantly of these is this part up. That part up is the most important part. And we will go to the next video. In the next video, we're going to talk about paired t-tests versus 2-sample t-tests. Thank you.